uh, I tested out my microphone just before, and apparently it doesn't make any difference. So I'm just going to stick with no microphone and just talk. I plan to talk about how I discovered I was Jewish and some aspects of growing up Jewish and feeling different and feeling pride and some things about Judaism that perhaps, well, that I wish more people knew about, makes makes it stand out, makes my upbringing stand out. But before that, I wanted to talk about um, the feeling that I had, waking up. As usual, I have my iPhone right by me when I go to sleep, and then I wake up, and I was enjoying the YouTube video when I woke up, and I until I get a job, um, I feel vulnerable and I feel anxious and so forth. Maybe you're going through a similar thing yourself. I know I need to pay the Verizon bill. I don't have the money. Um, again, wish me luck. This past Monday morning, um, I went on an interview for a good job. Hopefully, I'll get it. I won't know until the end of the month. And meanwhile, there's another job a recruiter reached out to me for where I'd be working from home. Um, I need to get used to talking like this. Apparently, this automatically sends highlights. The setup I have, uh, YouTube automatically sends highlights of this to YouTube Shorts, and I'm really, really thankful for people discovering my channel and for the chats. It's like you woke up. Oh wow, there's this guy Jeff on this on YouTube. I'm really thankful for that. um, I'm approaching about half of the subscribers I would need to move toward being monetized. That would be wonderful. I know it won't completely pay for my livelihood, but it'll at least be something. Um, so I wanted to talk about another project too. I had written a song for my girlfriend, actually my girlfriend's mom, and my girlfriend was really excited and really thought I had good talent, very talented and so forth. And if you've been following my channel, you would know that I have this project, and I wanted to talk about that project, dressing up as Samantha. I want to be a female impersonator and create my own character, Samantha Bahar, and I have this music I want to create and sing. I am a member of ASCAP. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's registration for registering music and albums and so forth. I have about 5 songs I want to create, register and sing, um, dealing with a relationship in particular. So they would be sung as Samantha from a female voice. Um, but I was working on that, and I wanted to work on that today. And boy, I always have this feeling of yawning, like I can't. Maybe it's stress or whatever. Um, I always have this feeling like I'm not getting enough oxygen in, or my shoulders are just under stress a lot. But I so want to earn money and get money coming in, and I was thinking about um, dressing up as Samantha and going on performing and I'll talk about that later. I just wanted to get that out. So let me go to let me go talk about um, growing up Jewish. I didn't know that I was Jewish until around sixth or seventh. Um, Somewhere I would peg for the beginning, maybe the summer between sixth and seventh grade. That would have been the end of elementary school and the beginning of middle school. My mom, as I remember it, my mom told me that I'm Jewish while we were walking through, and that I'd have to start training for. I'd go to Sunday school, and I'd have to train for my bar mitzvah in addition to that, which it wouldn't be until like for the about a year and something after that. So it's very different, and I already felt different. I remember my immediate reaction was no, no, no. Like it was just startling. Um, it's like you are, there's this thing about your identity that you didn't know about. So Oh, thank you, Danger Ranger Lando. I love that name. I wonder if I take it you're probably a Star Wars fan, Lando, Danger Ranger. Thank you for subscribing. So I hope your day's been going well. So I began Sunday school, and there was a classroom. I go in the classroom, and I felt that I didn't know what to expect from them. I know in elementary school, between boys and girls, the boys seem to be competitive, and it was an environment that I didn't really like, because I always felt awkward and uncomfortable um, being around competitive guys. Um, so I didn't know what to make of this. Um, and then I remember we were each told to tell something about ourselves, and I mentioned I was a Star Trek fan. And there was another kid, his name was Chuck, and he came over to me sometime and told me um, he was a Star Trek fan too, and that warmed me up a little bit. I've got to remember to talk about my trip to Israel um, later on. So I went through, Sunday school. It was a big chore to be able to go there because um, a lot of the kids that went there lived around that area. It's a higher income level area, and here I am coming from two city bus trips away, and my mom and I had to leave, go on the bus, wait around downtown, and then wait for another bus to go further to get to the temple to go so I can go in class. So I already it felt like a big trip, larger than other people, longer, more distant than other people probably did because they had cars and family and so forth. And it was just my mom and me. And I'm used to taking central buses, but it wasn't the same kind of experience going to temple that these other kids had. Um, so um, I enjoyed a little bit learning about Jewish culture and so forth. When was the next big moment I had? All right, so soon afterward, in addition to that class, I had to, it's either before or after, I was also taking a private tutorship with a member. I think she was a member there. She was older. She was an adult woman. Um, and how to um, practice for reading from the Torah. I've got to remember that you're not familiar with this stuff. So uh, a bar mitzvah kid, a boy, age 13, close to, but it has to be after he reaches age 13. he goes up on the bima, the platform, and um, reads from the Torah. The Torah scroll is unraveled, and he has his pointer, and he reads through that week's portion. Now, the Torah, from the beginning of Genesis to the end of Deuteronomy, is split into weekly portions. And so, uh, if you know the date on which your bar mitzvah will be, you can figure out which portion that will be. My portion happened to be called The Life of Sarah, which coincidentally begins by mentioning how old she was when she died. It's odd. And then her burial and so forth. Chaya Sarah, which means life of Sarah. Um, so my tutor wanted me to be able to understand and have some grounding in Hebrew before going further to be tutored by the cantor, or in other words, the singer, who would teach me how to chant the verses in that Torah portion. The entire Torah has musical notes as well. Um, so I would have to learn how to sing, basically, or chant, how to chant that week's Torah portion. So this tutor wanted me to learn how to read the Hebrew. So I got some training. I got some training in the alphabet and some words, and I think a little bit of vocabulary. Um, and then it was right around, so okay, at the end of that tutorship, I then, moved some months later. I moved on to taking a bus with my mom to this, wealthier area of town, of course, wealthier area of the city, of course, to meet at the cantor's house, to learn how to chant the verses. And this would have been probably in the summer. And it's not about Judaism, but it's about Bewitched, the TV show Bewitched. And I'll always link this. I think it was during the summer. Um, and I remember seeing on the commercial Nick at Night advertising for the first time in like 25 years. They would be showing the first two black and white seasons of Bewitched. The first time Darren meets Endora, his mother in law. The first time, the first episode. The first time this, the first time that. And I enjoyed that. I love that because I'd been watching Bewitched, the color version of Bewitched, the color seasons of Bewitched all the way through, and I enjoyed those. So this is a big, big special treat that Nick at Night would be showing these episodes, the first two seasons, for the first time ever on television in 25 years. And they weren't colorized. And as a matter of fact, later on, years later, when I bought the Bewitched seasons on DVD, I specifically bought the first two seasons in black and white as originally aired, not the colorized versions of the black and white seasons. Oh, congrats. Have a fun time. Pontoon boat Saturday. Oh, that sounds like really fun. I remember going on rent. I live near a polluted lake, like nationally recognized polluted lake, and for some reason they have river boats, or they have boating. You can rent boats and so forth. And I remember going with my mom when I was younger and paddling. I was a strong paddler in in Boy Scouts. I enjoyed paddling. When we would go to Boy Scout camp, Camp Sabatis. I was a strong paddler. So have fun. Okay, so back to this. So um, I remember the first time going to the cantor's house and um, trying to learn cancellation, I felt like I had a breakdown or I cried. I remember crying, and I guess there was stress at that point. I sort of remember it like I wanted to please her. I don't know. For whatever reason, it felt stressful, and I began crying during the training session. But I made it through, and um, so the bar mitzvah coming up. So around November, my birthday is November 14th. In eighth grade, um, I was actually turning 14. Um, which is a year later, I think, than 13. However, it figures out. Um, anyway, in the beginning of eighth grade, I remember having the bar mitzvah, and this is a big deal for me, partly because there were I've got to talk about the rabbi. So there was a new rabbi that began shortly after I began going to this temple with my mom. Um, and he took me out to dinner, which was really nice. And he wanted to learn more about me because my bar mitzvah, I suppose because my bar mitzvah was coming up soon. Um, and I wanted this Nintendo entertainment system. I'm not talking about the N64 or whatever. I'm talking about the original Nintendo entertainment system from 1985 or whatever. Um, and my best friend at the time, actually, I had two best friends. I had a close best friend from my earlier school at Wetzel Road, and my current best friend. Excuse me, hold on. Sorry. Um, and my earlier best friend that I still kept in contact with talked about having discovered this video game or playing this video game, Castlevania. And he described him as the character on the screen that you play as being like a hunchback. And I was intrigued. And I remember by that point, I was watching the Saturday morning cartoon show. What was it? Captain N. N for Nintendo. Captain N, the game master, and Simon Belmont was one of the characters, one of the group of regular hero characters in that show. And I was puzzled because I liked him as a distinct character. And I knew a little bit about Castlevania only through that. And so this best friend of mine said he was a hunchback. He remembered him being a hunchback in the game, and that was kind of odd. So I wanted to get a Nintendo Entertainment System, and I wanted to get Castlevania. There was Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, as well. So when I was talking with this rabbi at dinner in some nice restaurant, boy, by the way, I was impressed that he took me to this restaurant because my mom and I were accustomed to not having a lot of money. And I was already familiar with kids around me having more money than I did, even in regular secular school. So I said, I told my rabbi, I'm hoping that for my birthday or this bar mitzvah thing that I will get enough money to be able to um, get the Nintendo system. I think that's how I phrased it. Um, so, by the way, the rabbi always seemed like he had wealth. Like they all seem like they had wealth, and but he was kind. He was generous somewhat. I don't want to say generous. He was a little generous. He was kind. He was respectful. I don't know if generous was exactly the word, but kind and respectful. Um, I mean, he would give. He would help somebody, um, but he had a huge congregation. I think there were like 600. There were 60 families, something like that. Something like 60 families. Um, so um, around came time for the bar mitzvah, and my dad suddenly showed up. I don't mean to the bar mitzvah. I mean suddenly showed up to the house where my mom and I lived, and I didn't connect the two. Um, I just noticed, wow, he's because this is the first time that I think first time maybe that he showed up in my life. Aside from memories, slim memories early on when I was like 5, I think this is the first time I met him. Aside from, I guess, talking on the phone, that's true. I did, um, for a few years or for a year or something, I did get boxes from him of books and letters, and I would talk with him over the phone. But this is the first time, would have been the first time I saw him, he visited and so forth. So, um, I remember that was so that actually, I remember him visiting when I was in seventh grade. Must have been when I was in seventh grade that he visited too, because kids wanted me to get a buzz cut, and I associated that with having a buzz, a spiky hair and so forth, and being a punk. And I didn't want to get a that kind of hairstyle. And then some girls, I remember there was one girl. I won't give her name, but there was one girl that sat next sat to my right in English class, and she was kind of insistent that I get a buzz cut, and they said that I would look good in a buzz cut. So I was over at somebody's house, a friend's house, neighbor friend's house, and the two of them, and they gave me a buzz cut, and I was worried and concerned when I came home. What would my mom and dad think? And I remember that must have been when my dad was visiting, and that had to have been in seventh grade. So my dad said, "Oh, I look good," and my mom, I don't remember what my mom said, but she maybe she said she liked it. I don't know, but there was no animosity. There was no ill will. I mean, there's no ill will. I mean, they said it was nice. Um, so I came in, and people, I got compliments from people. All right, so my dad would have visited in seventh grade, and then here I am in eighth grade. So he visits again, and it seemed to be around the fall that he would visit. um, and my uncle showed up. So here's the time of the bar mitzvah. My uncle shows up, and something about a taxi, him showing up or pulling up in a taxi. And I had not known my uncle before whatsoever. This is on my mom's side. So it would have been my mom's brother. And it just really hit me now that I knew that my uncle was my mom's brother, but it just hit me now that my mom and I go to my bar mitzvah and hear her brother. It's not just my uncle; it's her brother showing up. Um, and sometime maybe I'll talk about the relationship between them. Um, he was he was older than my mom by a few years, and he seemed more successful. Well, he definitely was more successful, at least at that point in life. I mean, my mom had been successful. Both of them had been successful, but when I was growing up with my mom, my uncle, being able to go from New York City to where we were, showing up in a taxi cab, and he just seemed more like, and I'll be honest, the way I feel about this, he seemed more akin to these other people I knew who were wealthier, who had cars and so forth. So I don't remember getting a chance to meet him. Um, my dad and mom were there and participated on stage with me for my bar mitzvah, and that was a big thing. Um, and so after that, and I remember the treats and the cookies and baked assorted bakery items. And the punch bowl. There was certainly probably a punch bowl with ice cream and so forth. And we got to take it home, and we got to take it home. And I remember having those as snacks or whatever treats as a carryover from the bar mitzvah. And unfortunately, it doesn't last forever. So there must have been some point when it was all gone. But it was like having Halloween candy around as a memory of Halloween. After Halloween, if you eat well, if you eat, if you divide it up, you still have Halloween candy after Halloween. It felt like that. Um, and with the money, I was able to buy my mom went out to get a Nintendo system. She didn't get one that came packaged with Super Mario Brothers or Duck Hunt or whatever. She specifically bought Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, and that was my first Nintendo game. And so I have to figure this. I guess I don't want to combine that with another visit my dad had, and I don't want to turn this into my dad's a recollection of my dad's, my dad my dad visiting. Um, so let me jump forward to the next big thing. After seventh and eighth grade, Monday nights, it switched to Monday nights for religious school, I'll call it. Religious school, not Sunday school, religious school. And more education. There was this class, there were familiar faces from that Sunday school from seventh and eighth grade. There were familiar faces that went in with me, and we were in the same class in Monday nights. And I remember there was a regular taxi driver that drove me, and I think it was some arrangement probably through the temple that they helped me get a ride every Monday, helped pay for it. That was really kind of them. I don't know who paid for it, but thank you. Decades later, thank you. And I would chat sometimes with the taxi driver, and so Monday evenings, um, I seemed more curious about what was going on in the class, perhaps because I hadn't had the education earlier, Jewish education earlier. So I felt even as an outsider there in that class. Um, and did they respect me? Did they accept me? I don't know whether they accepted me or not. It seemed less disrespectful. It seemed less exclusive or exclusionary, I should say, than in secular school. Um, I don't remember much else. And then came the summer between was it 10th and 11th grade. It was the summer of 1992. It would have been July 1992. So you do the math. I graduated in spring of 94 from 12th grade. So um, I anticipate. Oh, so in regular school, uh, I still felt this sense of being ostracized and excluded socially. Um, but I did feel this sense of pride building about being Jewish. And I knew some things, some Jewish things. Um, don't worry, I'll get into a lot more Jewish stuff later on in this video soon. It's coming up soon during college. So so as I said, there was this trip to Israel for set up for July '92. Between one school semester and another, and I anticipated nobody would talk with me. Nobody would have an interest talking with me. And I went in, and on the plane trip, there was my first, so far, my only chance to be on a plane. Um, I didn't think anybody would relate to me being a science fiction fan or Star Trek fan or whatever. But on the plane trip there, okay, so I took a private plane from my home city with a bunch of us who were also from the same temple to New York City, to JFK Airport. And then from there, we would meet up with the others. And oh, I'm glad I didn't forget this. Remember the uncle I was talking about? Well, this is only the second time that I met him. And if I did presumably meet him the first time at the bar mitzvah, he met me at JFK Airport because he lived there, and it meant a lot to meet somebody who was my own blood and my own flesh and blood, somebody that would stand up for me. And you know what he did? He was really okay. I met with him, and I remember we were in the airport, a hallway or somewhere, and I told him that the one heading it up, or some adults who were taking care of it, had our tickets. And I remember him being um, kind of flustered, expressing being flustered, and saying, "No, I should have my own ticket." And he went over and talked to somebody. But I really feel so happy, and I'm sorry if I'm at a loss for words sometimes. It's the emotion I want to get out. He stood up for me. Like, this wasn't just somebody from school or from Boy Scout camp or somebody. This was, as I said, my own flesh and blood sticking up for me. And I don't remember what happened from that, but I just remember meeting up with the other kids, and then just all we were split into Academy 19 and Academy 20. That meant I don't know why they picked the word academy, but anyway, it just meant like roughly 25 or 30 of us in each academy. So I was group 19, and um, we all went in this larger plane trip, and my mom had told me before that I'm going to like it. I'm going to be able to have airplane food for the first time. And I went on the plane with these others, and I figured I was the only one. I remember now sitting with, well, I don't want to mention their names. I remember, you know, afterwards, I figured out who I had sat with. I didn't know any of their names at that point, but I just sat down with, there was this girl, and then there was this guy. Um, I guess I can mention the girl was Dana, and the guy was Howie. And for record's sake, I guess. And I, um, I think as he was Howie. Um, it was definitely Dana. Anyway, so some distance into it, here I am thinking that nobody cares at all. Nobody watched old time TV shows. Nobody was a science fiction fan. It was like in secular school where they were just only hip to the latest fashion and so forth. Um, and they didn't have much of a knowledge of what happened before they were born. And so some kid says, "Hey, there's a gremlin on the wing," which is an obvious reference, joking reference, unless there really was a gremlin on the wing. It was an obvious joking reference to the Twilight Zone nightmare. It's either nightmare or terror. I remember it's nightmare at 20,000 feet, and or terror at 20,000 feet. And I figured maybe at least there's somebody who knows Twilight Zone. Maybe there's some hope here yet. And I remember we made several trips during the Israel stay, and some places were really nice. Some places were eh. And this is not a tour video, um, but I remember after the first week, I really really enjoyed having them around me. It felt more like a family. They seemed more accepting of me, and they treated me like it sounds like a cliche, but they treated me like a human being. It wasn't like school, secular school, where I just felt just outside, excluded from everything the others were, anything other kids were doing or whatever, or they didn't. It's not like they didn't want me around, but like just feeling not a part of them. Um, it seemed like when I would say something, these kids would actually like listen to me, and that means a lot. That means a whole lot to me when because I didn't get that. I didn't really get that feeling at all when I was in secular school. When I would talk with somebody, and it seemed like the other kid was actually listening to me and acknowledging what I was talking about and respecting what I was talking about. Um, and it felt more like a family. And I didn't plan to say this later on, but I'm going to mention what impact it had later on in senior year of high school. I want to say that. Um, so I didn't plan to take any pictures. I didn't anticipate I'd ever, you know, become family with them, so to speak. And by the end of the trip, um, it was sad when I had to leave. We had to leave and go back home and part and so forth. And we went to back to JFK after the Israel trip. It was only a month, and then the group of us that were from my hometown boarded the plane and took the trip back home. And there was a kid that I was familiar with because we all went to the same Monday night, religious school class, and he pointed out there was an interview with somebody about Star Trek and about interview with James Doohan, something about an upcoming episode where Scotty makes an appearance in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Of course, now I know I think it was Relics. The episode was Relics. So that would be the forthcoming season after this summer. So that again gives you some time frame. So, and that would have been season 6. So this would have been between season 5 and 6 of Next Generation. So he said that this kid said he showed me the newspaper article, and he said, "Don't make something like don't make a big thing out of it, quiet or whatever." But here, he wanted to show it to me, and that meant, come to think of it now, that meant a big thing because that meant that he cared about he cared enough to acknowledge that I like Star Trek a lot, and he wanted to share it with me. Um, so I go back to school. Let's go back to regular life, and there was August to sit through. And then I began towards the end of September. I began the school year again. This would have been 6th grade, and it was back to normal and so forth. And I really forgot about that trip. Really, I wanted to mention. I guess I won't give her name. I can mention her name, her first name, Amanda. Um, I remember in that trip. I've got to mention. During the Israel trip, we were walking through some youth hostel, what they called a youth hostel. Um, it was basically like a hotel, I guess. Beit Shmuel, if that rings a bell for anybody out there, for anybody's in Israel. It was Beit Shmuel, I think. And one of the kids, it was that same kid, as I remember, who said, who sat with me. No, it wasn't. No, no, no. This makes more sense. No, no, no. Howie was the one. I think that I recognize his voice. I think he was the one that shouted out, "Hey, there's a gremlin in the plane." Dana was the girl that sat next to me, and the kid that sat next to her was somebody else. His name escapes me, but it wasn't Howie. That makes a lot more sense. So when we were walking through as a group, walking through the hallway of this youth hostel, finding our rooms, Howie, I remember, said, "This is the Starship Enterprise." Oh my gosh, wow! And I'll save this up. I want to talk about this, how I felt looking back when I was in senior year of high school. Um, so Okay, so I'm back in school, and I go through the doldrums of school, and then um, senior year and the first semester, and then the second semester, and um, tried to be friends with or open up a relationship with somebody, and it didn't. It was confusing, and it hurt me, and this is in the second semester of senior year, and so I was already. Oh, darn it! I forgot to tell you about Amanda. So back during that Israel trip, Howie was with me, and we were both with Amanda. And Amanda said that when she was younger, she used to pretend that she was a mermaid. Of course, me being attracted to mermaids. I remember Howie saying, "I could see you in that tail." I guess we must have been in near water at the time. Maybe we'd been we'd been in the lake or something. I don't remember, but or river or something. Um, so okay, now it comes to senior year of high school and the second semester, and I was confused about this other person, and whether I felt like everybody. It seemed maybe everybody was laughing at me behind my back, including this person. um I don't think so now, but I mean at the time I was so confused. So um anyway, I looked to my past, and I reached out to some kids from this Israel trip. I still had that blue sheet of paper that had the names and addresses of the kids, and I felt really nostalgic for some family that I felt close to, that accepted me and acknowledged me as from what I like I told you before. And um I guess it goes along with feeling excluded from and outside this senior year class, and I really wanted to break the ice. And I'm glad that I'm getting a chance now. I'm glad I remember to mention it here in this video. Um, so I started reaching out to them, and some of them I talked with, and some of them, well, email would have come later, but I remember reaching out to them, and I remember sending an email or sending a letter, a physical letter, and this would have been, I think, during either that semester or the following summer, probably during that semester, to Amanda. And I didn't mention anything about the mermaid attraction thing, but I remember her sending a letter back, and I don't know if I still have it, the moves and so forth. But she said, "I love getting mail," and I feel real envy for those kids that had a better education than I did. I feel envy for those kids that felt some sense of kinship with other Jews. And I always felt alone. I felt like Spock from Star Trek. And I mentioned him in an earlier video, why I felt like um, he was brought up Vulcan. He had a Vulcan father and a human mother, and just not at home either at Starfleet or on Vulcan and so forth. And um, I identify as being Jewish, and um, I feel so different from these other kids who weren't Jewish, who aren't Jewish. And I want to talk. This has been ongoing for a while. Maybe I'll divide this up into like a part two. Okay, it's already 44 minutes. Um, but I want to get to this part. um, after this horrible emotional thing that I went through, spring of '94 in the senior year of high school, um, I think I reached out to more kids from that. I know I reached out to more kids from that academy class and from years before, and just wanted to reconnect with my past, and sometime down the road I became, attracted to Madonna, all this nostalgia coming to mind. So I started school that August, and summer school that August, and still felt not really homesick, but like sick for nostalgia. Um, and I, at that point, people had email addresses. As I began going to courses in college, I would stay in touch with some of these kids from Academy 19, and I exchanged email addresses, and I really reached out to them. And I don't know if any of them are watching, and I haven't searched for them at all for a long time, and they've gone on with their lives. And maybe on LinkedIn I could try looking. One of the adults in charge of us. Her name is also Dana. Um, and I remember her last name. I I think I sent her a friendship contact request on on Facebook, and I don't know how many would be watching this who went to that academy trip, but if you did, please reach out to me. I really appreciate it. Um, I don't. I guess for part two, I'll talk. That's when I'll talk about just in general why I feel different and what's different about Judaism. What's unique about Judaism? See, that'll be a more happy, uplifting experience for me. And I haven't had anything to eat really. Must be hungry by now. So in kind of part two of this, I'll talk about things about Judaism that are different and I wish more people knew about. So, um, if it's your birthday, happy birthday. Hope you have a good day today, um, especially if you haven't so far. And if you want to support me, please go to my website, vvproductions.media, and go to my shop. Buy whatever you want. I have apparel and a mug and a trucker's hat, so forth. And give suggestions maybe below. Comment on this video. It's great that apparently YouTube is clipping highlights from this automatically into YouTube Shorts. So I'm getting attention there, and give suggestions for what you'd like to buy in my store, and all the proceeds, all the profits will go directly to paying my Verizon bill, because I have no income coming in, and I really need to pay Verizon to be able to keep this going. And good luck. Wish me luck in getting some job somehow. So till next time, thanks. Bye.